Right, nearly finished. Now that the water pump is in place, it's time to put the timing belt tensioner in position. Now there are two different models, then a manual tensioner, and this one is the automatic version, which is fairly easier to use. Now just set the central bolt, which we've replaced, just barely against the tensioner to hold it in place, but to leave some freedom of movement. And then it's time to slip the new belt into place, being very careful not to crimp the belt or damage it in any way. Now this is how I removed the old belt, is just to remove these two engine support bolts, and obviously support the engine with the floor jack, quite obviously, otherwise it'll end up on the floor. And now that the belt is in place, we can put these bolts back in place. Now these engine mount bolts are supposed to be torqued at 45 Newton meters, and it's a bit of a fiddle to put them back in place. Make sure that they rotate freely and that you don't have to force, because the engine support on the engine side is made out of aluminium, and it would be very easy to strip the threads, so be extra careful. And just torque these down to 45 Newton meters, and you can basically forget about them. There. Now what you have to do is start by the crankshaft pulley with your belt and work your way upwards on the front of the engine, so on the exhaust cam, and you're going to find it most definitely very annoying and even highly frustrating to have the belt jump out of place all the time. Now this almost drove me nuts. It's been a while since I'd replaced a timing belt on an engine, and so it took me a while to figure it out again. I ended up wedging a piece of cardboard under the crankshaft pulley and between the belt and its and the engine block, so that avoided it from jumping out of place. Now pull firmly on the exhaust side, and don't put the belt fully onto its sprocket, just put it halfway through. It makes things easier to slip it on all the other sprockets along the way. So just make your way onto the rest of the pulleys and so on and so forth, and you end the circuit by putting the belt on the tensioner pulley itself. It's a bit of a fiddle, but putting the belt only halfway onto each sprocket does help, and once you're sure that you've correctly placed the belt, just push it on all the way onto each sprocket in turn in a nice and even way. You can see it's nicely taut on the right hand side, and just push it on each sprocket quite evenly. There you go. Now it's on. Everything holds still firmly in place. Now tensioning. I use a mirror. You have the pointer and the index, which is that wire, and they both have to be facing each other. Now you always have to tension the tensioner clockwise until the pointer matches the index wire with the 6mm Allen screw. If you go past this point, you have to release the tension and start again. Now the automatic tensioner bolt needs to be torqued to 25 Newton meters, no more no less, and if you have the manual tensioner, the back plate needs to get 10 Newton meters of torque and the pulley itself 45. So in this case, which is the automatic tensioner, it's 25 Newton meters. Make a note of that, it's very important. There you go. Now just double check that your pointer and your index wire are facing each other. Now before putting the crankshaft pulley back in position, it's a good idea to put the timing belt lower cover back on, and the bolts holding that down are torqued to 9 Newton meters. There really is only one way to fit that pulley, so you absolutely cannot go wrong. And this one has to be tightened to 205 Newton meters. Now on some engines it is required to replace the crankshaft pulley bolt, but this isn't the case. You can absolutely reuse this one. Just make sure it's nice and clean. And so there you have it, yeah, 205 Newton meters. So now that all that is nice and tight, you can remove the locking tools. Don't forget the one on the flywheel, obviously, and the one in between the two cams. And it's time to rotate the engine 2 full revolutions, because that's the time that is required for a full cycle of the four strokes. And test the positioning, the correct positioning, by refitting your locking tool. And just check again after these 2 turns that the tensioner pointer and index are still facing each other. It's very important that they are. If they don't face each other, you have to restart the procedure. So lock it again, at least on the camshafts. Release the tension on the tensioner and reset it. And once you're done, check it one last time just to make sure. And that's all there is to it, really. The most difficult part of this job is now behind us. If you've done everything as I've described, talked everything to spec, the engine will start again and not blow in your face. So thank you all for watching. I do appreciate it, and I hope that this series has been helpful so far. There's still more to come though, so stay tuned, and until then, just drop a like, leave a comment, make sure that you subscribe, because there's more where that came from. And yeah, thanks a lot for your support. I really do appreciate it, and I'll catch you all in the next video.